Good morning, dear students. I hope all of you are safe and sound. Today, in our next lecture on History of England, we're going to have the ninth lecture. So, the lecture is the end of the Tudor rule and the start of the Stuart dynasty. And we have several plans today. First plan, the last Tudor ruler, Elizabeth I's contributions to the development of the state and the end of the era, the victory over the Spanish Armada. Third plan, Stuart's ruling in the kingdom. And the last plan, fourth one, the permanent conflicts of Stuart rulers with Parliament and its consequences. As I usually tell you in our lectures when we conduct lectures face to face, I tell you that first of all, you should learn your own history. You should study history of your own motherland. But in order to widen your knowledge, in order to increase your knowledge on different spheres, on the countries which are popular and which are developing nowadays, you should try to focus on other countries' histories as well. As you are studying the English language, you must be aware of some key events which happened in the history of this country. Today we are going to speak about Queen Elizabeth I. She was the last Tudor ruler. She is known as a Virgin Queen, which means unmarried queen. She was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anna Boleyn, as you know. And what can we say about her generally? The period when she, Queen Elizabeth I, ruled England was considered to be golden age. Sometimes it is referred as Elizabethan age. So it was a period where England became one of the most powerful states, not only in Europe, but in the world as well. She had, you can say, a strong personal character, because she faced with some challenges in her life when she was an adult. And her stepsister, Queen Mary, tortured her a lot, because she was Catholic, but future Queen Elizabeth I was Protestant. But she never revealed that secret. She kept a neutral religious position, because she knew if she confessed her being Protestant, she would probably be beheaded by her step-sister, Queen Mary. She somehow managed to survive, and she became Queen of England. And we can say that she was called she had many nicknames, and one of them was a queen with the heart of a king. She was very devoted to England. She liked her nation very much. She knew several foreign languages as well. She was keen on culture, on theater, on literature. She managed to develop culture and art in her state. And all these brought very good results, very fruitful results, which caused development, fast, rapid development of England. And Elizabethan England is usually named as Age of Exploration, because new explores, new inventions were made during her rule. Some new territories in America was made during her age as well. State of Virginia is named after Virgin Queen Elizabeth I as well. London became the largest city in Europe with quite much population for that time. And during her reign, the population of London doubled in the next 50 years, and foundation of this economic, financial, cultural foundation was put in her reign. And London became not only most populated city of Europe, but the city where which was center of European culture, you can say. So it was like the country blossomed, the country flourished. England had never had such a blossoming period before. So people were involved in culture, in art, theater. People started visiting theaters, and best writers of England created their masterpieces during Elizabethan rule as well. And we can mention about William Shakespeare, who established his own theatre globe, and it was often visited by Queen Elizabeth I herself. And all people were enlightened, they were motivated to live better lives by the influence of culture, by the influence of theatre, art, and literature as well. And what about what comes to political system? She was a very good politician as well, and she was able to make England powerful in political arena of the world as well. Now let's say some words about Elizabethan theatre, then we will come back to politics as well. So some peculiar feature of Elizabethan theatre was that only men were allowed to act on the theatre, no woman for acting some role. Men were dressed in women dress, women clothes, to act as a woman. But theatres were often packed, there were crowds of people, and because theatre was a popular art at the time, it was loud, it was sometimes dirty, but it attracted people. Popularity of theatre grew, and it was a contribution of Elizabethan period to the development of the whole nation and state as well. And not only rich people, not only people who belonged to higher class, upper class, but middle class people, even poor people from low class had rights and chance to visit theatres. And it was also one of the key moments of prosperity of England as a state. And let's come back to some facts about policy. And she was a good politician. She was able to have some democratic issues, and she were able to have diplomatic relationship with some other countries. But her policy contained one main concept, one main purpose. Everything was done for England. Everything went to the budget of England. And the main key rival of England at that time was Spain. Because Spain was the most powerful state which had very strong and best navy in the world. And of course, England understood, Elizabeth was understood that Spain would probably stay as a main rival in economy, in politics for England. So commercial interests were the same of these countries. Political rivalry is understood. The more territory you gain, the more influences you can spread. And what comes to religious rivalry, it was related to the Catholicism, and the center of Catholicism was Spain, and England was already Protestant country when Elizabeth I started ruling the state. But there were some people who were Catholics and would probably have Catholic ruler, and they wanted to be ruled by Spain. They were few, but anyway, danger from Spanish Catholicism was seen at the time as well. Students, one historical illusion, not historical fact, but one historical illusion says that King Philip II, the Spanish king who was Catholic ruler, asked a hand of Elizabeth I. He wanted to get married to Elizabeth I and to unite two countries and make England Catholic country as Spain. But Elizabeth I refused it. Maybe it is true or no, but there are some people who tend to believe this story. But they say that Elizabeth I denied the offer of King Philip II for the sake of her motherland. Everything she did was devoted to England. She was very loyal, she was dedicated, she dedicated all her life to her motherland. And maybe she was afraid that England would probably turn into a Protestant, a Catholic country, but she was herself Protestant. The majority of the population was also Protestant, and she didn't risk, and she denied the offer. The war between England and Spain was anyway inevitable. Everyone understood in the political realm of that period that anyway these two strongest countries would probably face on the battlefield. This happened when England started supporting Holland, which was part of Spain. And when Holland wanted to get its independence, England supported that country with weapons, with ships. It opened its channel to that country, and it was one of the reasons. Another reason, when Spanish ships were coming back from South America filled with gold, silver and other treasure, they were attacked by English pirates. And some historians say that they were hired by Her Majesty herself, by Queen Elizabeth I, because she understood the richer your rival is, the weaker you are. And that's why probably it is right when she herself sent her pirates to attack Spanish ships and to steal the treasure, and the treasure was shared with Queen Elizabeth I herself. One of the most popular sea rovers was Francis Drake. Probably you have heard about that person. So Spanish King Philip II understood. He perfectly knew that it was done by the Queen herself, and Philip II started opened war on England. In 1588, on the 8th of August, Spanish Armada, the most powerful navy in the world, approached to the English Channel with 132 ships. And at that time, students, no one could even imagine that England could defeat such enormous, powerful, the strongest navy in the world. But magic happened. England defeated the most powerful navy in the world and became the first country who could manage this difficult task. Some Spanish Armada had, of course, when we speak about numbers, they had more ships, more soldiers. Ships were modernized, and you can see some facts related to the war. And anyway, Spain was better trained from the point of military issues. But fact is fact. England defeated enemy who approached to the shores of the country. Here we should mention about Elizabeth I's speech, which encouraged seamen, encouraged those soldiers to fight against a strong, powerful enemy. She said, "I'm King of England." She didn't say I'm Queen, but she said I'm King of England. Yes, I have a body of a feeble woman, but I have a heart of strong king. She encouraged her people to fight against the enemy until the last alive person on the ship and shore. Some historians say that England did not defeat Spain. Wales did it instead of England, because at that time there was bad weather for Spanish Armada usually, and they wrecked. They were they lost their orientation. They wrecked to the rocks of the English Channel. They lost their ways. They could not navigate over the English Channel, which was probably new for them. And bad weather defeated Spanish Armada rather than England, some historians say. But whatever it was, winner cannot be discussed or disputed. England won, and contribution of Elizabeth I to this war was great. And after it, one more time, the whole world confessed this woman, admitted this woman as one of the greatest rulers ever in the history of the world as well. One of the quotes of her: "Men fight wars, women win them." Pay attention. Women are behind the curtains, but maybe they do anything, they rule situations, they win over the situation, being as a back part. Glorious a picture was drawn of Elizabeth I, and as you see at the back part, as a background, you can see how Spanish ships are approaching to the English Channel, and at the right you can see how they were wrecked and how they were destroyed. And Elizabeth I is holding the world like a map, showing her power. It means that the whole world is on her hand because she is having the best fleet in the world. But after Elizabeth I's death in 1603, Tudor's dynasty stopped ruling the country because Elizabeth I didn't leave any heir after herself, and Stuarts came to the power. Stuarts were the first kings of the United Kingdom, but they were not so lucky. They had permanent conflicts with Parliament. At that time, Parliament started having more power than the king, than the monarch. James I was the first Stuart king, who was James the sixth in Scotland. She was the nephew of Elizabeth I. She was invited to come and to rule both England and Scotland. And he mostly was based on divine rights of the king. Like he meant no one has a right to interfere into the actions and deeds of the king. But Parliament, as I told you before, it was like was having more powers than before. It got strengthened, and there were many problems of Stuart kings with a parliament, and it grew into civil war afterwards. In our next lectures, we will continue speaking about Stuarts and the civil war in England, between Stuart monarchs and between parliamentarian people. That's all for today. Thank you for your attention.